Maya Johnson turned off the radio and slowed down as she drove through the quiet streets of Westbrook Heights. The big houses with their perfect lawns and expensive cars in the driveways always made her feel a little nervous. She didn't belong here. At least that's what people always told her with their looks and whispers. But Maya had every right to be here. She lived just 2 blocks away in a small apartment with her mom and little brother. The old Honda Civic made a funny noise as she stopped at a red light. Maya hoped it would last until she could save enough money to fix it. She had just finished her evening shift at the public library where she worked shelving books and helping people find what they
needed.
The job didn't pay much, but Maya loved being around all those books. She dreamed of the day when she would have her own law office, helping people who couldn't help themselves. Maya was 19 years old and had big dreams. She had graduated from high school with perfect grades while working 2 jobs to help her single mother pay the bills. Now she was studying for the law school entrance exam every night after work. Her notebooks were filled with practice questions and legal terms that she memorized during her breaks at the library. Officer Danny Martinez had been driving around Westbrook Heights for 3 hours that Tuesday evening. He knew this neighborhood well after patrolling it for 3 years. Rich people lived here, people who drove new cars and wore expensive clothes, people who looked like they belonged. When he saw the beat-up Honda Civic with the young black woman behind the wheel, something didn't feel right to him. Martinez slowed his police car and followed the Honda for 2 blocks. The girl was driving carefully, maybe too carefully. She was going exactly the speed limit and stopping completely at every stop sign. To Martinez, this looked suspicious. In his experience, people who drove this carefully were usually hiding something. He decided to pull her over. Maya saw the flashing lights in her rearview mirror and felt her heart start beating fast. She had never been pulled over before. She carefully pulled to the side of the road and turned off the engine. Her hands were shaking a little as she reached for her driver's license and registration papers. Officer Martinez walked slowly to the driver's side window. He was a tall man with dark hair and cold eyes. Maya rolled down her window and tried to smile politely. "Good evening, officer." "Is there a problem?" Maya asked in her most respectful voice. Martinez looked at Maya with suspicion. She was young, maybe still a teenager, wearing jeans and an old hoodie. Her car was at least 10 years old and looked like it might break down any minute. What was someone like her doing in a neighborhood like this? "License and registration," Martinez said without answering her question. Maya handed over her documents with steady hands. "May I ask why you stopped me?" "I was being very careful to follow all the traffic rules." Martinez looked at her license and saw that her address was indeed in this area, but that didn't change his mind about her. "You were driving suspiciously slow, looking around at houses like you were planning something. What are you really doing in this neighborhood?" Maya felt confused and a little scared. "I live here, officer. Well, 2 blocks from here. I was just coming home from work at the library. I drive slowly because I'm still getting used to these winding roads." "The library?" Martinez laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. "What kind of work do you do at a library, cleaning?" Maya felt her cheeks get hot with embarrassment and anger, but she kept her voice calm. "I help people find books and information. I also help with computer training for older adults." Martinez wasn't satisfied with her answers. He walked around her car looking through the windows with his flashlight even though it was still light outside. "Step out of the vehicle. I need to search your car." Maya knew this wasn't right. She had studied enough about law to know that police officers needed a good reason to search someone's car. "Officer, I don't think you have the right to search my car without probable cause. I haven't done anything wrong." This made Martinez very angry. In his 3 years as a police officer, people usually did what he told them to do without asking questions. "Don't tell me what I can and can't do. People like you need to learn some respect for authority." "People like me?" Maya asked quietly. She was starting to understand that this had nothing to do with her driving, and everything to do with the color of her skin and the age of her car. Martinez stepped closer to her window. "Yeah, people like you. Young troublemakers who think they can go anywhere they want and do anything they want. This is a nice neighborhood for nice people. Maybe you should stick to your own kind of places." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Officer, I would like to see your badge number, please, and I want to know exactly what law I have broken." This was the last straw for Martinez. No teenager was going to tell him how to do his job, especially not some girl from the wrong side of town who didn't know her place. "Get out of the car, right now. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest." "But I haven't resisted anything," Maya said as Martinez opened her car door. "I've been polite and cooperative the entire time." Martinez grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her out of the car. "You're resisting right now by arguing with me. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Maya did as she was told, her mind racing. She knew this was wrong, but she also knew that fighting a police officer would only make things worse. As Martinez put the handcuffs on her wrists, she tried to memorize every detail of what was happening. The time, the location, exactly what had been said. "You think you're smart, don't you?" Martinez said, as he led her to his police car. "Well, let's see how smart you are when you're standing in front of a judge. You're going to learn real quick that there are consequences for people who don't show proper respect." As Maya sat in the back of the police car, she wasn't crying anymore. Instead, she was thinking. She was thinking about every law book she had read, every legal term she had studied, every case she had learned about in her preparation for law school. Officer Martinez thought he had taught her a lesson, but Maya was already planning how she would teach him one. The ride to the police station was quiet except for the radio chatter. Martinez was satisfied with himself. Another troublemaker, off the streets. In his report, he would write that the suspect had been aggressive and uncooperative. No judge would believe her word over his. But Martinez had made one big mistake. He had completely underestimated Maya Johnson. He saw a young black woman in old clothes driving a beat-up car and assumed she was ignorant and powerless. He had no idea that behind Maya's polite smile was one of the sharpest legal minds of her generation, and she was about to prove it to him in court. 3 weeks had passed since Officer Martinez arrested Maya on the quiet street in Westbrook Heights. Maya had used every single day to prepare for her court date. While other teenagers her age were hanging out with friends or watching movies, Maya spent her evenings at the library reading law books and studying court cases. She learned about something called constitutional rights. She read about the Fourth Amendment that protected people from unreasonable searches. She studied cases where police officers had been wrong and how smart lawyers had proven it in court. Maya filled 3 notebooks with information, writing down important facts and legal words that might help her case. Her court-appointed lawyer was named Kevin Smith. He was a tired-looking man in his 40s who carried a briefcase that was falling apart. When Maya first met him, he seemed rushed and distracted. He spent only 30 minutes talking to her about the case, asking basic questions and taking notes on a yellow pad. "Don't worry too much about this," Kevin told Maya during their short meeting. "These kinds of cases usually work out fine. We'll probably get you community service or a small fine. The judge sees dozens of these every week." But Maya wasn't satisfied with that answer. She wanted to fight the charges because she knew she had done nothing wrong. When she tried to tell Kevin about all the research she had done, he patted her shoulder like she was a little child. "I appreciate your interest, Maya, but let me handle the legal stuff. That's what I'm here for," Kevin said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maya left that meeting feeling more alone than ever. She realized that if she wanted real justice, she would have to be ready to fight for it herself. The morning of the court date arrived gray and rainy. Maya put on her best dress, a simple navy blue one that her mother had bought for her high school graduation. She brushed her hair carefully and practiced what she might say if given the chance to speak. Maya's mother, Linda Johnson, drove her to the courthouse. Linda was a nurse who worked double shifts to support her family, but she took the morning off to be with her daughter. "I'm proud of you no matter what happens today," Linda told Maya as they walked up the courthouse steps. "You've worked so hard to prepare for this." "I just want the truth to come out, Mom," Maya replied. "I know what really happened that night." The courtroom was bigger than Maya had imagined from watching TV shows. Judge Patricia Williams sat behind a large wooden desk at the front. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had been a judge for 15 years. The courtroom smelled like old wood and cleaning supplies. Maya sat at a table next to Kevin Smith, who was shuffling through papers and looking nervous. Across the room, she could see Officer Martinez sitting with the prosecutor. Martinez was wearing his police uniform with all the buttons polished and his shoes shining. He looked confident and relaxed, like he had done this many times before. When Martinez saw Maya sitting at the defendant's table in her simple dress, he couldn't help but smile a little. She looked so young and scared. This would be easy, just like all the other times he had testified in court. His word against some teenager who probably didn't even understand how the legal system worked. Judge Williams called the case to order. The State versus Maya Johnson, charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. The prosecutor, a serious woman named Helen Carter, stood up to make her opening statement. She explained to the judge that Officer Martinez had stopped Maya for suspicious behavior, and that Maya had become aggressive and uncooperative, forcing the officer to arrest her for everyone's safety. Then it was Kevin Smith's turn to speak for Maya. He stood up slowly and gave a short speech about how Maya was a good student with no criminal record who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He asked the judge to be lenient because Maya was young and had learned her lesson. Maya felt her heart sink as she listened to Kevin's weak defense. He wasn't fighting for her at all. He was basically agreeing that she had done something wrong, and just asking for mercy. Officer Martinez was called to testify first. He walked to the witness stand with confident steps and raised his right hand to swear to tell the truth. Maya watched him carefully, noticing how he held his shoulders back and spoke in a loud, clear voice. Martinez told his version of what happened that night. In his story, Maya had been driving erratically and acting suspicious when he pulled her over. He said she immediately became hostile and started yelling at him. According to Martinez, Maya had refused to follow his lawful orders and had physically resisted when he tried to arrest her. She was clearly agitated and looking for trouble, Martinez told the judge. I've been doing this job for 3 years and I can spot a troublemaker from a mile away. This young woman showed complete disrespect for authority and left me no choice but to arrest her for the safety of everyone involved. Maya sat quietly taking notes as Martinez spoke, but inside she was burning with anger. Almost everything he said was a lie. She had been polite and respectful the entire time. She had never yelled or physically resisted anything. Judge Williams listened carefully to Martinez's testimony. She had heard hundreds of similar cases over the years, and usually she could trust police officers to tell the truth about what happened. Martinez seemed sincere and professional as he described the events. The prosecutor asked Martinez a few more questions to make his story sound even more convincing. She asked him about his training and experience, making sure the judge knew that he was a professional who knew how to handle difficult situations. Then it was time for Kevin Smith to cross-examine Martinez. This was Maya's lawyer's chance to challenge the officer's story and point out any problems with his testimony. Maya leaned forward in her chair, hoping that Kevin would ask the tough questions she had written in her notebook. But Kevin's cross-examination was disappointing. He asked only a few basic questions and didn't challenge Martinez on any of the details of his story. He seemed afraid to push too hard or make the officer angry. "No further questions, Your Honor," Kevin said after just 5 minutes. Maya couldn't believe it. Kevin had missed so many opportunities to show that Martinez was lying. He hadn't asked about the traffic stop procedures or the lack of probable cause for the search. He hadn't questioned why Martinez's police report was different from his testimony in some small but important ways. As Martinez stepped down from the witness stand, he glanced over at Maya with the same dismissive smile he had given her that night on the street. In his mind, this case was already over. The little girl had learned her lesson about respecting police officers, but Maya wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. As she watched Martinez return to his seat, she was making a decision that would change everything. She leaned over to whisper something urgent in Kevin Smith's ear, something that would surprise everyone in that courtroom and turn this simple case upside down. Maya leaned close to her lawyer, Kevin Smith, and whispered in his ear, "I want to represent myself for the rest of this trial." Kevin's eyes went wide with surprise. "Maya, that's not a good idea. You're not a lawyer. This is serious business." "You're not fighting for me," Maya whispered back. "You didn't ask him any of the important questions. Please just let me try." Kevin looked at Maya's determined face and then at his notes, which were mostly blank. He knew he hadn't done a good job preparing for this case. He had too many other cases and not enough time. Maybe the young woman deserved a chance to speak for herself. "Your Honor," Kevin said, standing up, "my client would like to represent herself for the remainder of this trial." Judge Williams looked surprised. In all her years on the bench, she had rarely seen such a young defendant ask to represent herself. "Miss Johnson, do you understand what you're asking? This is a criminal trial with serious consequences. Are you sure you want to give up your right to an attorney?" Maya stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking a little, but her voice was steady and clear. "Yes, Your Honor. I have been studying law and preparing for this case for 3 weeks. I believe I can present my defense better than anyone else because I know exactly what happened that night." Judge Williams studied Maya's face. There was something different about this teenager. She spoke with confidence and used proper legal language. "Miss Johnson, I have to warn you that representing yourself is very difficult, even for experienced lawyers. Are you absolutely certain about this decision?" "I am certain, Your Honor," Maya replied. "I understand the risks, but I also understand my rights under the Constitution." Officer Martinez shifted in his seat and looked at Maya with amusement. This was getting even better. Now the little troublemaker thought she could play lawyer. This would be entertaining to watch. He had dealt with plenty of people who thought they were smarter than they actually were. Judge Williams granted Maya's request after making sure she understood what she was doing. Kevin Smith gathered his papers and moved to sit in the gallery, looking relieved that he was no longer responsible for the case. Maya walked to the podium where lawyers usually stood. She opened her notebook, which was filled with 3 weeks of careful research and preparation. The courtroom was very quiet as everyone waited to see what this teenager would do. "Officer Martinez," Maya said in a clear, professional voice. "You testified that you pulled me over because I was driving suspiciously. Can you please tell the court exactly what suspicious behavior you observed?" Martinez straightened up in the witness chair. "Like I said, you were driving too slowly and looking around at houses like you were casing the neighborhood." "Casing the neighborhood?" Maya repeated. "That's a term that suggests criminal planning. What specific actions did you see me take that indicated I was planning to commit a crime?" Martinez felt a little uncomfortable. This wasn't the kind of question he usually got from defendants. "Well, you were just acting suspicious. Any experienced officer would have noticed it." Maya made a note in her notebook. "Officer Martinez, what is the speed limit on Maple Street where you first observed my vehicle?" 30 miles per hour, Martinez answered. "And how fast was I driving?" "About 25 miles per hour." Maya nodded. "So I was driving 5 miles per hour under the speed limit. Is driving under the speed limit illegal in this state?" "No, but—" "Thank you," Maya interrupted politely. "You also testified that I was looking around at houses. Is it illegal for a driver to look around while driving?" Martinez was starting to feel annoyed. "No, it's not illegal, but when you put it all together, it looks suspicious." Maya flipped a page in her notebook. "Officer Martinez, you stated in your testimony that I became hostile and started yelling at you immediately when you approached my vehicle. Is that correct?" "Yes, that's right. Did you have your body camera turned on during this traffic stop?" Martinez paused. "No, I didn't." "Why not?" "Isn't it department policy to record all traffic stops?" Martinez looked uncomfortable. "Sometimes we forget to turn them on." Maya made another note. "You also testified that I refused to provide my license and registration, but in your written police report you stated that I did provide these documents. Which statement is true?" Officer Martinez felt sweat starting to form on his forehead. He hadn't expected anyone to actually read his police report carefully or compare it to his testimony. "I meant that you were reluctant to provide them." "But that's not what you testified to earlier," Maya said calmly. "You said I refused. Was your testimony incorrect?" The prosecutor, Helen Carter, was starting to look worried. She had expected this to be a simple case, but Maya was asking questions that even experienced lawyers might not think to ask. Maya continued her questioning. "Officer Martinez, you testified that I was physically resisting arrest. Can you describe exactly what physical resistance I showed? You were pulling away from me when I tried to handcuff you. Were there any witnesses to this physical resistance? No, we were alone. Did you call for backup when I was allegedly being physically resistant? Martinez shifted in his chair. No. Isn't it standard procedure to call for backup when dealing with a physically resistant suspect? Usually, yes. Maya looked at her notes again. Officer Martinez, in your 3 years as a police officer, how many times have you arrested someone for disorderly conduct? I don't know the exact number. Would you say it's more than 10 times? Probably. More than 20 times? Martinez was getting frustrated. Maybe. I don't keep count. In how many of those cases was the defendant a young person of color? The prosecutor stood up. Objection, Your Honor. That question is not relevant to this case. Maya looked at Judge Williams. Your Honor, I believe this question goes to the issue of bias and selective enforcement, which is relevant to whether Officer Martinez had proper justification for this arrest. Judge Williams considered this for a moment. I'll allow the question, but keep it focused on this case, Miss Johnson. Maya nodded. Officer Martinez, you don't have to give me exact numbers, but would you say that most of the people you've arrested for disorderly conduct have been young people of color? Martinez looked angry now. I don't arrest people because of their race. I arrest people who break the law. Yet you can't tell me what law I broke that night, can you? You were being disorderly and resisting arrest? Maya flipped to another page in her notebook. Officer Martinez, can you define disorderly conduct under state law? Martinez opened his mouth, but no words came out. He realized he couldn't actually give a legal definition of the charge he had arrested Maya for. Let me help you, Maya said. Under state law, disorderly conduct requires behavior that disturbs the peace in a public place or threatens public safety. Can you tell the court how my polite questions about your authority and my request to see your badge number disturbed the peace or threatened public safety? Martinez was now visibly uncomfortable. The confident officer who had entered the courtroom was gone, replaced by someone who looked confused and defensive. Judge Williams was watching this exchange with growing amazement. She had seen many lawyers over the years, but rarely had she witnessed such a methodical and effective cross-examination. This 19-year-old was displaying legal skills that many experienced attorneys would envy. Maya wasn't finished yet. She had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, and she was going to use every piece of information she had gathered to prove her innocence and expose the truth about what really happened that night. Maya walked back to her table and opened a folder she had prepared during the 3 weeks since her arrest. Inside were papers, photographs, and other evidence that she had collected while preparing for this day. Officer Martinez watched her, nervously from the witness stand, wiping sweat from his forehead with a tissue. Officer Martinez, Maya said, returning to the podium. I want to show you some evidence that I've gathered. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Judge Williams nodded. You may proceed, Miss Johnson. Maya walked over to Officer Martinez and handed him a photograph. Can you tell me what this is? Martinez looked at the photo and his face went pale. It looks like a security camera. That's correct. This is a security camera from Miller's hardware store, which is located directly across the street from where you arrested me. Were you aware of this camera when you wrote your police report? No, I wasn't, Martinez said quietly. Maya handed him another paper. This is a letter from the store owner, Mr. Carl Miller, stating that his security camera was working that night and recorded the entire traffic stop. He has agreed to provide the footage to the court. The prosecutor, Helen Carter, looked worried. She had not been told about any video footage. This was new information that could change everything. Your Honor, Maya said, I would like to play this security footage for the court. Maya had spent 2 days convincing Mr. Miller to let her see the security footage from his store. Mr. Miller was an older man who had lived in the neighborhood for 30 years. At first, he didn't want to get involved in a court case. But when Maya explained what had happened and showed him how hard she was working to prove her innocence, he agreed to help. Judge Williams allowed the footage to be played. Maya had borrowed a laptop from the library, and connected it to the courtroom's television screen. Everyone in the courtroom watched as the black and white security video began to play. The footage showed Maya's car being pulled over by the police car. Even though there was no sound, everyone could see what really happened that night. The video showed Maya sitting calmly in her car when Officer Martinez approached. It showed her handing over her license and registration without any problems. Most importantly, the video showed that Maya never yelled or acted aggressively. She remained seated in her car the entire time, speaking normally to the officer. When Martinez arrested her, the video clearly showed Maya complying peacefully. She did not resist or pull away, as Martinez had testified. Officer Martinez watched the video with a sinking feeling in his stomach. He had completely forgotten about the possibility of security cameras. His story was falling apart in front of everyone. "Officer Martinez," Maya said after the video finished, "does this footage match your testimony about my behavior that night?" Martinez stared at the floor. "No, it doesn't. In fact, this video shows that I was calm and cooperative throughout our entire interaction, doesn't it?" "Yes," Martinez admitted. Maya walked back to her table and picked up another piece of paper. "Officer Martinez, I also have phone records from that night. These records show that I was on a call with my mother when you first approached my vehicle. My mother is here in the courtroom today and is prepared to testify about what she heard during that phone call." Maya's mother, Linda Johnson, raised her hand slightly from where she sat in the gallery. She had been on the phone with Maya that night, helping her daughter with directions to get home safely. "During that phone call," Maya continued, "my mother heard me speaking to you in a polite and respectful manner. She heard me ask why I was being stopped and heard me comply with your requests for my documents. At no point during that call did she hear me raise my voice or act aggressively. Would you like to challenge my mother's testimony?" Martinez shook his head. He was trapped, and he knew it. Maya opened her notebook again. "Officer Martinez, I have also researched your record as a police officer. In the past 3 years, how many complaints have been filed against you for inappropriate behavior during traffic stops?" The prosecutor stood up quickly. "Objection, Your Honor. The officer's past record is not relevant to this specific case." Maya looked at Judge Williams. "Your Honor, this information is relevant because it shows a pattern of behavior that supports my claim that Officer Martinez acted improperly during my arrest." Judge Williams thought about this carefully. "I'll allow the question, but keep it focused on relevant patterns of behavior." Martinez looked very uncomfortable. "There have been a few complaints." "How many is a few, Officer Martinez?" "Maybe 4 or 5. "And how many of those complaints involved young people of color?" Martinez didn't want to answer, but he knew he had to tell the truth. "Most of them." "Were any of those complaints found to have merit by your department's Internal Affairs Division?" 1 or 2 were inconclusive. Maya made a note in her notebook. "Officer Martinez, have you ever received training on constitutional rights during traffic stops?" "Basic training, yes." "When was your last refresher training on the Fourth Amendment and proper procedures for vehicle searches?" Martinez paused. "I'm not sure. Maybe 2 years ago." "So you haven't had recent training on when you can and cannot search someone's vehicle?" "I know the basics." Maya nodded. "Yet you demanded to search my vehicle without probable cause, didn't you?" "I had reasonable suspicion." "Based on what? Driving under the speed limit and looking around while driving?" Martinez had no good answer for that question. Maya walked closer to the witness stand. "Officer Martinez, I want to ask you directly. When you saw me that night, a young black woman driving an old car through a wealthy neighborhood, did you assume I was up to no good?" Martinez looked uncomfortable. "I was just doing my job." "That's not what I asked you. Did you make assumptions about me based on my age, my race, and the car I was driving?" The courtroom was completely silent. Everyone was waiting for Martinez's answer. I might have made some assumptions," Martinez admitted quietly. "And those assumptions led you to treat me differently than you would have treated a white teenager driving through the same neighborhood, didn't they?" Martinez looked down at his hands. "Possibly." Maya walked back to her table. "Officer Martinez, Do you now admit that your arrest of me was based on prejudice rather than any actual criminal behavior? The prosecutor tried to object, but Judge Williams allowed the question. Martinez sat silently for a long moment. Finally, he spoke in a voice so quiet that everyone had to lean forward to hear him. Yes, I made mistakes that night. I let my assumptions cloud my judgment. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Maya had done what seemed impossible. She had gotten a police officer to admit in court that he had arrested her because of prejudice, not because she had committed any crime. Judge Williams banged her gavel to restore order. The court will take a 15-minute recess before closing arguments. As people filed out of the courtroom, Officer Martinez sat alone at the witness stand, staring at his hands. He finally understood what he had done to Maya and how wrong he had been. The confident officer who had entered the courtroom that morning was gone, replaced by someone who was forced to face the truth about his own prejudices and mistakes. After the 15-minute break, everyone returned to the courtroom. Maya sat at her table organizing her notes for her closing argument. She had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, and now it was time to bring everything together. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was clear and focused. Officer Martinez returned to his seat next to the prosecutor, but he looked like a completely different person than the confident man who had entered the courtroom that morning. His shoulders were slumped and he wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. The truth about what he had done was now out in the open, for everyone to see. Judge Williams called the court back to order. Miss Johnson, you may present your closing argument. Maya stood up and walked to the podium one last time. She looked around the courtroom, seeing her mother in the gallery giving her an encouraging smile. She saw the court reporter typing every word and the few other people who had stayed to watch this unusual case. Your Honor, Maya began. 3 weeks ago, I was arrested for doing nothing more than driving home from work. I was arrested because Officer Martinez made assumptions about me based on how I looked and what kind of car I drove. Those assumptions were wrong, and they led to a violation of my constitutional rights. Maya opened her notebook and looked at the notes she had made during weeks of preparation. The evidence presented today shows clearly that I did not commit disorderly conduct. The security video proves that I remained calm and respectful throughout my interaction with Officer Martinez. My mother's testimony about our phone call confirms that I never raised my voice or acted aggressively. Judge Williams listened carefully as Maya continued. The young woman spoke with confidence and used legal terms correctly. Her argument was well organized and logical, like something a seasoned lawyer might present. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution protects all citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures, Maya continued. Officer Martinez had no probable cause to search my vehicle. Driving carefully and looking around while driving are not crimes. They are not even suspicious behaviors. They are the actions of a responsible driver who wants to get home safely. Maya turned a page in her notebook. Officer Martinez admitted under oath that he made assumptions about me based on my age and race. He admitted that those assumptions influenced his decision to arrest me. This is not justice. This is prejudice, and it has no place in our legal system. The prosecutor, Helen Carter, was taking notes, but Maya could see the worried look on her face. The case that should have been simple had turned into a disaster for the state's side. Your Honor, Maya said, I am not just asking you to dismiss the charges against me. I am asking you to send a message that police officers cannot arrest people simply because they don't like how they look or where they think they belong. I am asking you to protect the rights that our Constitution guarantees to all citizens, regardless of their age or race or the car they drive. Maya paused and looked directly at Judge Williams. I am 19 years old, and this experience has taught me that sometimes you have to fight for justice yourself. No one else will do it for you. But I have also learned that when you prepare, well, and tell the truth, justice is possible. Maya closed her notebook and returned to her seat. The courtroom was completely quiet. Even the court reporter had stopped typing for a moment, impressed by what she had just heard. Judge Williams called for the prosecutor to give her closing argument. Helen Carter stood up reluctantly. She knew her case was lost, but she had to try to save something from the disaster. Your Honor, Carter began weakly. While there may have been some miscommunication about the events of that night, Officer Martinez was still acting in his official capacity as a police officer. Perhaps the charges could be reduced to a lesser offense. But even Carter seemed to realize how weak her argument sounded. The evidence Maya had presented was too strong to ignore. Judge Williams didn't take long to make her decision. After reviewing all the testimony and evidence presented today, I find the defendant not guilty on all charges. The state has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Miss Johnson committed disorderly conduct or resisted arrest. The judge looked directly at Maya. Miss Johnson, your rights were clearly violated during this arrest. Officer Martinez had no legal justification for detaining you or demanding to search your vehicle. His own testimony confirms that his actions were based on improper assumptions rather than probable cause. Maya felt tears of relief start to form in her eyes. But she kept her composure. She had won. But more importantly, the truth had won. Judge Williams wasn't finished. I am also ordering that this case be forwarded to the Police Department's Internal Affairs Division for a full investigation into Officer Martinez's conduct. This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated in our community. After the judge dismissed the court, people began filing out of the courtroom. Maya's mother rushed over to hug her daughter, both of them crying with happiness and relief. Judge Williams approached Maya as she was packing up her notebooks. Miss Johnson, I have been a judge for 15 years, and I have rarely seen such an impressive legal presentation. What are your plans for the future? Maya smiled. I'm studying for the law school entrance exam, Your Honor. I've been accepted to several law schools with scholarships. I'm not surprised, Judge Williams said. You have a natural gift for the law. I would be honored to write a recommendation letter for you. As Maya was leaving the courthouse, Officer Martinez approached her. He looked ashamed and nervous. Miss Johnson, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you that night, and I'm sorry for what I put you through. Maya looked at Martinez for a long moment. She could have been angry or mean to him, but that wasn't who she was. Officer Martinez, I accept your apology, but saying sorry isn't enough. You need to change how you treat people. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect regardless of how they look. Martinez nodded. You're right. I have a lot to learn, and I'm going to start by taking classes on community relations and constitutional rights. What you did in that courtroom today, it opened my eyes to things I never wanted to see about myself. Word about Maya's courtroom victory spread quickly through social media and local news. Videos of her cross-examination went viral, with people amazed that a 19-year-old had outmaneuvered an experienced police officer and won her case. Law firms began calling Maya's house, offering her internships and jobs after she graduated from law school. Civil rights organizations invited her to speak at their events. Local colleges asked her to visit and talk to their students about justice and determination. But Maya remained focused on her goals. She used her newfound fame to help other young people who had been treated unfairly by the police. She started a program at her local community center to teach teenagers about their constitutional rights. 2 years later, Maya graduated at the top of her law school class. She accepted a job with a prestigious law firm that specialized in civil rights cases. Her first case was representing a young man who had been arrested under circumstances very similar to her own experience. Officer Martinez, meanwhile, completed extensive retraining and became an advocate for police reform in his department. He often told other officers about his encounter with Maya and how it had changed his understanding of justice and respect. He knew he could never undo what he had done, but he was determined to make sure it never happened again. Maya's story became an inspiration to people across the country. It proved that one person, no matter how young or powerless they might seem, could stand up to injustice and win. It showed that preparation, courage, and truth were powerful weapons against prejudice and abuse of power. Years later, when Maya had become a successful civil rights lawyer, she would often tell people that her real education in law didn't begin in law school. It began on a quiet street in Westbrook Heights when a prejudiced police officer made the mistake of underestimating a determined young woman who refused to accept injustice.